Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to another episode of the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show. I'm Smitty. With me, as always, are my co-hosts, Drew and Joe. What is going on, fellas?
What's up, man? It's draft season. We're here. We've survived 2/3 of the preseason games, and it's showtime. It's what we live for.
Yeah, right before we started, Drew informed us. Didn't really know that we were getting in. I guess I should know that we're getting into this time of year, but this is a very popular week for drafting. So this should be, if you tune in 1 week to the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show, it should be this week. It should be every week. But if you're only going to tune into one, make it this week. Drew, you haven't said anything yet. What's going on?
I was just tweeting the link. My bad. What's going on, fellas?
Nice.
I'm trying to spread the love.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea because the show goes out on the Around the 412 Twitter account. So technically, I haven't retweeted from the Fantasy Show account yet. So let me do that. But while I do that, you guys can start talking about, well, specifically, Drew, I know that you're the injury guy here. Let's talk about some of these injuries. Why don't we start off with, I love the way you put this guy's name in here, too. Ken, don't call me Kenneth Walker.
So Ken, don't call me Kenneth Walker, has a hernia, which I'm a little worried about. I don't know about you fellas, but a hernia is going to stick with him basically all year. It's like going to Las Vegas. And those stick with you.
What are we doing here?
I was watching a thing from the draft about herpes sticking with you, and it was about because this draft was in Vegas. Yeah, whatever. I'm worried about hernia because that's
a family game.
That he could aggravate all year just from getting hit. He can aggravate that thing just from sneezing or going to the bathroom and deciding to bear down. Like the dude, yeah, it's going to be a struggle for him. So I'm worried.
Hernias don't heal, right? Like it's something that you have to get surgery to fix. Otherwise, you just deal with it. It's like a pain tolerance thing.
I mean, they're saying that his isn't that bad, so I feel like he could heal. But how is he going to heal a hernia from while playing football? It's just not going to happen.
Drugs.
I am a Ken, don't call me Kenneth Walker owner in Dynasty as well. So not the greatest start for him for his career here. But Derek has a question for us immediately. Who are some round 5 to 6 running backs you guys like?
AJ Dillon.
Here we go. No, that
the
honestly
1A, 1A, 1B.
Do one of you guys have that pulled up right now? Like who's going in that range? Like
I'm
round 5, 6?
pulling up the ADP right now. If we're looking at 10-team leagues, you're really in that tier of like Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell, CEH, AJ Dillon. Any of those guys would fall into the 5 or 6. I would anticipate with the news of Antonio Gibson falling, he'll probably end up in that conversation as well. So Drew, you're taking Dillon over all of those guys?
Yes. And Elijah Mitchell's probably right there too.
Yeah, I think
to say you mentioned Elijah Mitchell, should note that it sounds like he's to be ready to go week 1.
Yep.
Yeah. So Mitchell was really good last year in terms of a volume perspective. He didn't get a lot of work in the passing game, but that's okay. I think he probably has the safest bet in terms of action, assuming that everybody stays healthy. Somebody that's been really intriguing to me lately is J.K. Dobbins. I know there's some concern about him being able to start the year coming off of the ACL injury last year, but we know that the Baltimore offense is going to be running the ball a lot. You will have Lamar vulture some of those goal line touches, but with Gus Edwards being out, he is somebody that could definitely outperform his ADP. I don't really like anyone in this group particularly well. If I had to choose one, it would probably be Elijah Mitchell. But yeah, it just depends on what you want. This is really when you're getting into that like running back dead zone. For me, I would want 2 running backs before having to get in this situation, just because there's a lot more depth in receivers in the middle rounds. So I think for me in the first probably 4 rounds, I'm probably trying to leave with 2 running backs so I don't have to make this decision because it just feels terrible.
I think there's guys that are actually going after that I like more, that are going later. I like Kareem Hunt, especially with Watson going to be out. I like Kareem Hunt. I like Dameon Pierce. I like Rashad Penny now that Kenneth Walker's hurt. They didn't
follow up from Derek, though.
We're going to let Geno Smith or Drew Lock cook. They're going to run the ball a ton.
Would I keep Zeke over? So, Derek, question to your question: is this full PPR? What is the keeper rules associated with that?
Yeah, so he said earlier something about keeping. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to keep 3 receivers. So I'm assuming that DJ Moore is one of those 3. And if he's not naming the other 2, I'm assuming it's like those are locks. Don't know who they are, obviously.
Sure.
But...
Yeah. So
I think DJ Moore could be a top 10 wide receiver this year. I would keep him.
Yeah, I would say that DJ Moore and Zeke are probably pretty comparable value. In a scenario like this where it's just your first 4 picks, anybody that you're getting either that is a first 4 pick or it's somebody that you're going to want to look at. Both of those guys fit that criteria. So DJ Moore has a slightly higher ADP, but Zeke really isn't that far behind. It's just a matter of what do you think is going to be the best available player available to you in that first round. To me, I would probably rather take the 3 stud receivers and try to figure it out. I think that, yes, it is important to have at least one good running back there, but you can kind of hit the rest of the draft heavy and play more of a lottery ticket game with the running backs. And then instead of if Zeke goes down, then you're still in the same hole that you would have been without the other receiver to compensate for it.
I'm liking Tyler Hurley's listed some of his team here. He picked 9th in a 10-team league, swung on Barkley and Kamara, hope for the best. Next back that he got was A.J. Dillon, and then the 4 picks in between were A.J. Brown, Kyle Pitts, DJ, and Elijah Moore.
It's a vibe. I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
Also, Platt's here, and I think this message is probably just for Drew. So I've seen them saying it to back and forth to each other on Twitter and stuff. So I got Hurts in the 8th to pair with Brown. Yeah, see, there you go. There's a stack. Hey, we haven't really talked about stacks at all. I'm sure we're going to get into it more, but that's an interesting thing because I know that we were real big into the stacks talking about them last year. But Hurts, A.J. Brown. The other injury to talk about was Michael Thomas, Drew. Latest on him.
Yeah, so this one could be easy. He has a hamstring injury, and why were we not picking him the last 2 years?
Because all he does is run slants.
He had this mysterious ankle injury. He was a top 7 wide receiver like 3 years in a row, but then he has this mysterious ankle injury. Obviously, he's hitting that. What is he, 30 years old? Is he 31 already or 32? He's hitting that wall.
Is he really
that old? I don't think he's that old.
He's at least 29, right?
He is 29. He was born March 3rd, 1993.
Yeah, so he's hitting that age group where you start to worry about your wide receivers, and the dude just can't stay healthy. I was out on him for the last 2 years. I came back last week. I'm back off. If he's gonna linger with a hamstring injury all year, Chris Olave is the guy you want.
Well, do you think that they'll actually let Jameis do Jameis things this year, or do you think they're going to run like 20 plays a game and he attempts like 7 passes?
Wasn't he good last year before he got hurt? He was like 7th in the NFL in QBR.
Yeah, but like the number of attempts that he had was so low. I think they were only throwing like 23 or 24 times a game. So that the volume wasn't there. It wasn't your 30 for 30 and 5,000 Jameis. It was this like very calculated, here's a play action.
Let Jameis cook.
Yeah,
they lost their entire defense though last year when they were struggling with the salary cap. So they're gonna
they still wouldn't throw.
They're gonna have to throw to stay in games.
Yeah,
have to. I think Kamara is gonna obviously, if he stays out of the legal issues and he's playing, I think he's gonna be the guy that is really gonna factor into that offense. Obviously, but someone's gonna have to catch the ball. Marcus Callaway is kind of something that we watched last year. He didn't really amount to anything.
Preseason darling. That's why I don't get bought into the hype. Like you look at all the players from last year that all were supposed to be great. None of them actually did anything when it counted. And the person that everybody hated the most in Chase had one of the best wide receiving seasons in the league.
That's why Treylon Burks is about to explode.
I don't know, man.
I'm hoping. I bought it.
So I don't know. Should we say what we're going to be doing on this show in terms of the mock drafts? Because obviously we want to get to that stuff. We do have a couple topics, names specifically to bring up. And I hate even saying the one guy's name, but I think that we should start there.
Voldemort.
Not going to have a conversation about it in any perspective other than just from fantasy. But number 4 for the Browns is obviously we knew he's going to miss at least 6 games. We now know that that's going to be 11 games. From a fantasy football perspective, what this does for everybody around him, you already mentioned, Drew, you like Kareem Hunt a little bit more now than you probably would have. But for everybody else, like who's the fantasy football impact? Like who does it have the greatest impact on, both for or against?
Yeah. You want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think the person that comes to mind for me is going to be Nick Chubb. Like, how does that impact the offense? They like to run the ball. They don't use him as much as a target. I don't think that he's incapable. It's just that Kareem Hunt isn't a backup running back. He's just a second starter that they have. And it doesn't look like they're going to be trading him. So if Cleveland's going to be playing these low-scoring games, or if I can't envision a scenario where they're going to be aiming for a shootout. They're going to try to keep the score low. They'll grind out games, which is good from a Chubb perspective. But if he's not getting touchdowns, you're really going to be capped out at whatever the yardage that he's going to get, which was the case before. But I think with Watson, it was like, okay, they're probably going to be winning more games than they lose. From a game script perspective, that gives Chubb more runway. When it's flipped, we haven't really seen the Browns in that scenario too much. I mean, I don't think they've had great quarterback play in the last couple of years. Well, I guess more so last year, and he was fine. But there's definitely some more risk there. I think that Chubb going where he is in the 3rd round is already reflective, and that's baked in a little bit. So it's not like a do not draft situation for me, but I probably wouldn't touch him until like the end of the 3rd, early 4th round if it was for me.
I mean, we obviously know that Amari Cooper is going to start to slide. I think that there's going to be a point where he stabilizes, and I'm actually going to look at him in drafts because I was looking back at some of Jacoby Brissett's years when he started with the Colts, and he had fantasy relevant pass catchers. T.Y. Hilton had 1,100 yards receiving in 2017, his best season. But most importantly, Jack Doyle had 110 targets, 80 receptions, and 700 yards. I think David Njoku is going to be a huge lift off this situation. So I'm looking at him. He's going undrafted. You could have, if you miss out on one of those big 3 like Andrews, Kelsey, or Pitts, you could double dip at the end of your draft. Maybe the guy with Cole Kmet, and then maybe David Njoku, and hope that one of them hits.
Yeah, I know you guys aren't big fans of Dawson Knox, but he was the first tight end that I took in one of my leagues. But I have David Njoku as well, so that's kind of basically how you said Kmet and Njoku. That's kind of the route I went with that, I guess. But It was with Dawson Knox instead. But yeah, I'm a big Njoku guy. I think that he hasn't obviously hit that ceiling yet, and I was excited to see him play with number 4. But yeah, definitely don't disagree with the situation. We got some running backs on here, though, too. Antonio Gibson, Javonte Williams, Dameon Pierce. Are you going to put Dameon Pierce every week to talk about? I mean,
we don't have to talk about it.
Well, I mean, what is there to even say at this point?
We got to talk about Antonio Gibson, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Joe just mentioned he doesn't really pay attention to the whole preseason hype. And the last few shows, we talked about how preseason is just a wash. But this situation is the first time I'm really watching it. And there's 2 things you watch for when you watch a preseason game. You pay attention who's running with the first
cheerleaders.
Team.
Oh,
I guess that's 3 things. So you pay attention who's running with the first team, but most importantly, you watch when your team is putting you in a dumb situation where you could risk injury. If he's going to be a guy that's going to be a big part of this offense, why the hell was he back there to receive the first kickoff? Like if he gets hurt on that kickoff,
yeah.
It's just stupid. So I think that this is real. I've completely faded Antonio Gibson. I'm not even considering him if he slides. Where is he, like the 7th round now? I'm not even considering it yet because if he's not getting any of the passing down work, obviously McKissick is their guy. They stopped him from going to Buffalo. And then Brian Robinson is going to be getting the goal line. Unless he's taking the ball to the house from 40 yards, like he's going to produce nothing for you in fantasy.
I don't know. I'm not off of the hype. I mean, I sold Gibson last year before all of this stuff went down in our one of many dynasty leagues, and feeling a lot better about it now than I did at the time. But I think that there is a point in which it's like his value is going to be too good to pass up. Like we don't really know what's going to happen with the running back room. I think McKissick is really the only piece that we know of for certain, and he's going to get that work, and he was going to get that work anyway. Obviously, a little bit more room for what's going to happen on the first 2 downs, but at the end of the day, I mean, the dude was a top 24 running back more than 50% of his games that he played in last year. And then if you look at the year before, I mean, he had this fantastic rookie year, over 1,000 yards rushing. So it's not like he hasn't performed. He's had some fumbling issues in the past, which is something that is always a concern.
That's why.
That's the key, though. So yeah. I read an article from one of the beat writers over in Washington, and they essentially said that the Commanders felt that they lost games because of Antonio Gibson. This isn't a fantasy football thing. This is a real life football thing. They don't feel that they can trust him. So unless Brian Robinson gets hurt, I don't think he's getting more than like 12 carries a game, and he has to do major work on those carries or else he's going to be unstartable.
Yeah.
Trade him somewhere else.
You can stash him if you think he has a risk or if he has a shot from injury, but Brian Robinson's going after him in ADP.
His agent has to be trying to get him out of Washington, right?
Yeah, has to
Gibson's, be. I mean, it's insane.
Like when he took the opening kickoff, like that was just like a smack in the face to him. If he gets hurt on that play, like what are people going to say about Washington? It's a serious thing. They don't see him as a guy that they can trust at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you genuinely believe that that's the case, looking at last year for Gibson, he was getting 16 carries a game. You absolutely need to go out and get Robinson at the end of drafts.
Yeah.
If you think that it's like he's completely done and he is no longer the guy and he's just going to be a backup role, then you need to be going and getting that other piece. McKissick's not going to just become a running back, like a traditional running back. He's going to be that third down guy. He's going to be that passing down guy. He's a great pass blocker. Gibson is also not good at that either, so he's not going to become the pass catching back regardless.
There we go. They can get Benny Snell from the Steelers. Great in pass pro. Can play special teams.
I mean, it all checks out to me.
Have at it.
But, I mean, Gibson had almost 20 touches a game. His evaded tackle rate was over 5, which is pretty good.
His
so
yards per carry and yards per reception were all well below average. Yeah. I just think that he got saved by some big plays.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, last year they finished out the year, their PFF offensive line grade was ranked 6th. They've dropped 9 spots to 15.
Why do you keep mentioning them, PFFT?
What other stats do you have to bring up stuff about the offensive line?
Yeah, for offensive line, I'm cool with it.
I'd rather just type it in on Google and hope that I find some like YouTube site like us that'll do it. I don't want to hear from them. I have all of PFF blocked on Twitter. Screw them.
Love it.
My point is that they've declined in the offensive line department going into this season, so it's not going to get any easier for them, regardless of what the Carson Wentz might add to that offense. Which is
this backfield's just going to be San Francisco and Miami.
I don't know though. That's not really Rivera's style.
But he doesn't have a guy. I just don't think Brian Robinson's very good either. He didn't do much at Alabama, right, Zach? You would know more. Derek, what do you think?
I feel like he's pretty. What?
I was going to say Derek's in the chat. He probably have a big rundown on Brian Robinson from Bama.
Well, Brian Robinson was a guy that I considered, like, if the Steelers were going to add a second running back, and like, because I thought he'd be available. When did Washington pick him? Like round 3?
98. I heard it.
Yeah, today. I thought he'd be available like round 4 or later, and he was the kind of a guy I was considering. He was a Senior Bowl guy, but yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know too much about him. I know I wasn't incredibly impressed.
Per carry, 14 TDs, 35 receptions. Pretty strong year.
You're playing with that behind that O line though. Like we could run through that.
Yeah.
5 yards per carry in college. That's like
the biggest thing for him is that he continuously got passed over by other prospects at Bama.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was like.
Yeah, he was there with Najee at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Did you put Javonte Williams on here because of Melvin Gordon's statements? Is that why he's on here?
Yeah. Because I'm bricked up.
I mean, real quick, if you want to talk about that, I guess go ahead. But
so I did a ton of research this week after he said that because I was like, I need to like feel even
His
better.
Own research.
Yes, my own research. So first 5 weeks of 2021, Jonathan Taylor was splitting 50-50 with Marlon Mack. Okay, this is just so weird to me. Marlon Mack last year signed back with the Colts for 1 year, $2 million. Melvin Gordon signed this year with Denver for 1 year, $2 million. Did you just put music on?
Come on, keep it going. Don't stop the flow.
Hold on. I gotta get myself back on track here. Javonte was RB18 in PPR last year, and he's being drafted RB12, which I don't think is that serious. Like last week we discussed, we thought maybe he was being drafted at his ceiling. I think he's getting drafted kind of at his mid. He was 13th overall in receptions, 17th in targets. Why is the music on?
Don't stop the vibes. Get your stats out. Come on.
All right, Javonte led the NFL in broken tackles, which you can argue is a volume stat, but if you actually break it down, he was breaking a tackle on 1 on every 6.5 attempts, which led the NFL. He was facing a stacked box with 8 or more defenders, 9th most in the league with a minimum of 200 carries, 22% of the time. Seattle faced stacked boxes under 50% of the time while Russ was there. And when Denver was there, it was 62% of the time they were facing a stacked box. So I expect that to decrease. And if he just gets 60 to 70% of the role, and I think that that's being conservative at this point, the way Melvin Gordon was talking. If you listen to the way he discussed everything, he mentioned that Javonte was expected to be the guy. And then he started to backtrack because he was like, oh, wait, I probably shouldn't have said that. We're talking about our plans. He was giving it away and realized that he made a mistake. I think that he's being drafted at his midpoint now, and I like him now. Last week I didn't. And I just think that he's too good not to be the guy. He could just take it away just like Jonathan Taylor did last year. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's special, but I think he's a top 10 running back.
Yeah.
All the concern was if it was going to be 50-50 or not, and I don't think that that's going to happen.
So let me ask you a question. Who would you rather have? Aaron Jones, Javonte Williams, Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette?
Saquon, but then Javonte.
Same. I'd rather have Saquon.
I would put Javonte at the bottom of those 4.
I would not. I don't want Aaron Jones. I think that A.J. Dillon's going to be taking a lot of his load this year. Wait.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for stopping by.
No, seriously, I think Dillon's going to – they're not built to throw the ball. I think A.J. Dillon's looking at least 15 carries. He was averaging
Who's not built to throw the ball?
Green Bay. They just don't have the receivers.
But doesn't that
they'll create receivers?
Doesn't that benefit Aaron Jones?
It does, but I'd rather take the ADP later on and draft A.J. Dillon. You can even reach for him and still get a value.
I mean, maybe. Just the way that I see it is that Aaron Jones had the same amount of carries. They were pretty much equal for total touches last year. I have nothing to say to that. I respect him. I just think that the Javonte hype is too big. You have a quarterback that they're going to have to justify the trade, so they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Melvin Gordon, even if he gets a reduction in carries, it's not like Javonte's going to be the bell cow. And I think that they're going to be the worst. They could be potentially the worst team in the division.
They are.
Javonte was 17th in the league in targets at running back, and that's going to go up.
No, but see that you got to look at it per game. He was getting 3 targets a game.
Listen, we saw what he is in that one game where he finally had a chance to prove who he is. If he gets 70% of the work, he's going to be a top 10 running back just based on.
You can say that about anybody, though.
Oh, I get that, but we're expecting it now. His problem was that we were expecting a 50-50. He was still being drafted in the top 15 running backs.
Who's expecting it? I'm not changing what I think about the offense just because Melvin Gordon said
I think he's going to go to 70. He was a free agent for a month and a half in the free agency. They had no anticipation on bringing him back, and then they were just like, okay, well, he has no offers. We'll give him $2 million just in case we need a backup option. I think that Javonte Williams is the guy. And you could record this, and we'll talk about it later in the year. But I'm that certain at this point.
You know, we're live, right?
Free agency.
I don't think it's going to be 50-50. I just don't think it's going to be that drastic.
I don't think it's going to be 70-30. I think it's going to fall somewhere in between.
Yeah, same.
Listen. I was there last week, but when I really thought about it, if they felt like he couldn't handle it, why did they let Melvin Gordon sit as a free agent for a month and a half? They were just like, we don't need you.
Because this price, the longer that he sits on the market, the price goes down.
They didn't need him.
Who's to say they wouldn't have brought in somebody else if it wasn't Melvin Gordon?
It was a month and a half. They weren't actively.
Look at how free agency went for everybody this year, though. Not just running backs.
There was a lot of guys that went early.
Give me thick Lenny Fournette getting 6 targets a game with a reduced backfield competition, still on a better offense. Like, I will take him, and I think Saquon can be a potential number 1 running back. So at best in that group, I'm going to be taking Javonte third if I buy into the Aaron Jones thing. But I don't know. I prefer in the early rounds to chase things that I think that I've seen it happen, or I feel very confident that they will happen. I lack the confidence that you do in Javonte.
I'm worried about Tampa Bay because their entire offensive line is on the shelf. Like, I just don't like Fournette. I can't even name a guy on their O-line right now by name.
Shaq Mason. They traded for him.
Is that anyone else?
Don't care. They got the GOAT.
You mean like with
GOAT is terrible under pressure.
The GOAT loves Leonard Fournette.
28th in the league under pressure last year.
I mean, what's the deal with Tristan Wirfs?
He's supposed to be fine. They said he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. You said like healthy right now. I'm like, well, I think Wirfs is going to be back for the opener though. But anyway, all right. So what other business did we have to take care of? Oh yeah, mock drafts. How do we want to do this?
Do you want me to pull up the fantasy pros?
You're gonna have to be the one to pull it up. Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's fine. I have it open. So pretty much what we wanted to tackle today was just looking at like a 10-team league, do like a draft and like some strategy around like what happens if you were to have like an early pick versus what you would have like late. And then depending on how that goes, then maybe next week we'll hit something in the middle. But I think the strategies will more or less overlap. So did we land if we wanted to draft second or third?
Do third. Third, 5, 7.
Yeah, let's do. Drew's worried about the CMC conversation at 2.
I'm not really worried.
Right, cool.
Did you see Tyler's comments here? Fournette went 10th in his home league.
He's going high, yeah. In some drafts.
That high?
Yeah.
And then Aaron Jones back to back.
I mean,
that person did.
I feel like that person probably could have got like Diggs there. But
something else.
Yeah. All right. Give me the keys to the kingdom so I can share this.
Oh.
Cool. So if you're unfamiliar with this tool, Fantasy Pros has a free draft simulator that you can use. You're able to pull up whether it's like a dynasty league or for like a redraft league, different scoring settings, or if you wanted to get into like auction league or salary cap league, stuff like that. You can specify the number of teams. You can randomize if you don't know what the order of your draft is going to be, and then you can specify like what that positional breakout's going to be. So this is just a quick way if you just want to get comfortable with knowing who's generally going to be around in the ADP, that you can get a feel for what's going to happen on your draft night. And if you also like are going to be on like a particular website, you can do it based off of those ADPs. The one that we're going to do today is just going to be an aggregate of all of them. But pretty much you can just run this and then it just kind of goes. So first 2 picks were, well, I guess I did it at 2. So I guess we're the second pick now. Congrats. We traded up. I'll just go back and redo it. Just cause
that big of a deal.
It is. Let's see. So we're PPR 2022, third 10 teams. And then, all right, we're good there. Okay. So we start the draft and what do you know? McCaffrey goes 1, Jonathan Taylor goes through number 2. How are you boys feeling about pick 3? The consensus is Austin Eckler. I could see Kupp or Jefferson going here as well. What are y'all's thoughts?
I know that we really haven't talked about this, like especially like these guys up at the top, right? Like after 1, other than McCaffrey, the conversation. I guess I didn't realize that Austin Eckler was the consensus at 3. What do you guys think about that? Just before even like, let's just have a conversation about that specifically.
It's definitely interesting. I think just hearing that, like, Austin Eckler is probably the most honest fantasy football person that plays football. Like, he said going into this year that he wants to run the ball less. They did have their rookie running back get hurt this past week, so he's going to be out for quite a bit. So they're a little bit thinner at the running back position. His strength of schedule is a little bit high, but I really don't worry about that going into the season. To me, I would probably take Cooper Kupp in this spot. Just knowing like the things that he did last year was unbelievable. If you look at like his top 12 and top 24 finishes, so he had a top 12 finish in 15 out of the 17 games that he played. Like at 88%, like that's just absolutely absurd that if you can just lock that position in and call it a day, that's really good. I think the other thing to keep in mind though, and this is more of just a lineup construction, a spoiler alert, I'm going to be pushing pretty heavily at the 2-3 turn to be picking an elite tight end. So if you're taking Kupp or Jefferson here, what does that ultimately mean for your 4th round and 5th round picks that you're going to be looking at going running back, and you could be left pretty vulnerable. So to me, that would be the argument for taking Eckler, but I would be willing to risk it and see who falls, I
think. But is Eckler the only running back that you consider here then?
How much do you want? I mean, at the end of the day, first round pick.
Derrick Henry.
Would you consider the Najee?
I would, not over Eckler though. Derrick Henry, if I had the top pick, I've considered taking Derrick Henry because I just think that his volume is just going to be absolutely absurd again. Like the Titans have to win this year because they're all getting old. This is their window closing. And the only way they're scoring points is by feeding him the ball. Cooper Kupp, obviously he's an absolutely great player. I would pick Justin Jefferson over him just because I think that Jefferson has the chance to absolutely explode. I think Cooper Kupp is going to regress because what he did last year was just absolutely insane, and it's just impossible to replicate. I just don't see it. And I think that Allen Robinson is going to take a little bit off of him. I prefer Jefferson. I would take Eckler because I think he's the safest. But I would consider, if I was going to go running back, I would consider Henry because his volume is just obviously absolutely absurd. It's just what he
with the injury that he had last year, that doesn't concern you at all going into this year?
No, it's a fluke thing. It's not like he had a Liz Frank that just is going to linger. Like it was just a fluke thing. It was Jones fracture, just like James Washington had. He came back and played on it, and he was was fine. I'm not worried about that at all.
Yeah. Entire picture though for that offense, like you had AJ Brown to at least, obviously they didn't rely on the pass, but you had him to kind of take the top off. I mean, defenses, if it's possible, are going to be keying even more on Derrick Henry now.
I don't care. I just
and you don't.
He's a monster.
I think ultimately when you are in the first round, it's very easy to overthink it. Like clearly for me, my guy in the first round is going to be Christian McCaffrey if he's available. I don't care where I'm picking. Like that's going to be my guy. I think if you are somebody that's like, man, I really would like to have Najee on my team, or I'm really big into Justin Jefferson this year. Like these guys, if you're picking early in the draft, they're not going to be there when you get back. So it's like, get your guy and build the team around that. It sounds like, at least from what we're saying, running back is the play here early on in the top 3 picks.
I'm sorry. It's so small on our screen. It was Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey. So far? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so for me, I would actually probably pick Najee before Eckler. So for me, it'd be between Najee and Justin Jefferson.
I like Eckler more than Najee only because of the offense that he plays in. They're just going to score so many points. Like I'm worried that the Steelers have a lot of 3 and outs and keep Najee off the field. But I still like Najee as a first round pick. I just think that Eckler's just the safest.
Excellent. We just drafted Austin Eckler. Okay.
Fine.
So, here's where we're at, round 2. So some notable players off the board. So Najee went 8, Kupp and Jefferson went 4 and 5. And then Travis Kelce was the first pick of the second round. Just missed out on Deebo Samuel, CeeDee Lamb here. I feel like this one's pretty obvious for me, and I would be smashing and taking Kamara immediately. If we're looking at the top wide receiver options right now, you're looking at like Keenan Allen, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Michael Pittman. Saquon's still available there too if you'd rather go the Saquon route. And then obviously there's only been one tight end off of the board at this point.
That's honestly what I thought you were going to try to say was Mark Andrews here.
Yeah, I like Kamara too, though, because I think that he should be going in the top 10. I don't think his ADP has actually reflected the fact that it doesn't look like his legal issues are going to hurt him.
Yeah. I mean, I would be willing to risk it and see if Mark Andrews survives, knowing that Kamara's there. If Kamara wasn't there, I would probably take Andrews here.
You don't think Pitts makes it back to you, though? Like, I think Andrews and Pitts are interchangeable. If you can get Pitts in the next pick and you don't get Andrews, I don't think it hurts you that much.
Yeah, but I feel like taking Pitts personally at the top of the third is a reach. I just think that there's a lot of other talent there that I might prefer to have, mostly because I don't trust Mariota.
It's gonna be Desmond Ridder though, so
I don't trust him either. But and
it's just too good.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think he's too good.
So where are we going here, boys?
Kamara for sure.
Yeah, it's Kamara.
He shouldn't be on the board yet.
All right, so Josh Allen, Fournette, Pittman, Mark Andrews got picked before. So that's pretty unfortunate, but expected.
I mean, if he would have gotten here, that's a great start.
Yeah, right.
Got here. It still could be, but
yeah.
You should have kept it at 2.
I should have kept it at 2. I know. So at this point, you've got Eckler and Kamara. You're pretty solid and set at the running back position. In theory, I guess that you could go like a Saquon type move here, but I think at this point, it's like, do you want to take Kyle Pitts and figure out the receiver situation later, or do you get more of a bona fide wide receiver early, like Keenan Allen, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, AJ Brown? I don't really know.
I don't like those receivers that much, honestly, because they all have question marks. Evans is hurt. He has his annual hamstring injury that he gets every year, obviously.
Yeah.
AJ Brown, like I'm still worried about the fact that he's moving from a rush heavy offense to an even heavier rush offense. I know that Hurts is his boy, but I just think that it's not more valuable than Pitts. And if you draft Barkley here and he explodes, that 3-headed monster at running back is just insane.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to take Barkley here, you pretty much can punt on running back for the most of the draft. I think moving in like PPR format, like you need to have 2 players that you can start each week, but you really only need like 3 viable running backs. In your flex, you're more than likely going to play a receiver. It just is what it is now.
I'm so high on Pitts. I think that
I would go Pitts here, to be honest. Like at least for me, I've always been able to find receivers deeper in the draft to provide similar production. Like I would rather take the top tight end left and find receivers later on.
I would probably take Barkley here, just based off of value alone.
I'm hoping Deontay gets back because that's who I was thinking.
Deontay did get back.
Yeah, that's
looking at the rest of that round. So you had Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, AJ Brown. Barkley went 3-7. Javonte went 3-8. Then you had Keenan Allen, Zeke, Aaron Jones, James Conner, T. Higgins, DJ Moore, Pat Mahomes, Breece Hall, Cam Akers. And then you're into wide receiver land.
It's Deontay.
Okay.
Jordan Addison. Yep.
Cool. So Kittle's still there, Waller's still there, Schultz still around. If you were waiting on the tight end game. But all right, we'll draft Deontay. I'm starting to get a little bit worried about Deontay, just seeing how the offensive line has been playing. But I'm sure it'll be fine once we get there. Okay, so Montgomery, Williams, Sutton, Metcalf, all gone.
I hate DK there. I just think it's too early. I hate that.
Oh, he got drafted?
Yeah,
well, that's good. We don't have to think about him then.
Yeah, I just don't see it.
You know who I would actually take I would probably take maybe Brandon Cooks here in the 5th round. I like
McLaurin.
What's that?
I like McLaurin. I think Wentz is going to elevate him a bit. Wentz isn't good, but every quarterback.
That's hilarious. That's just hilarious to hear Wentz elevating anybody.
Yeah, but
we've seen the quarterbacks he's had
are terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely be a step up. I mean, Pittman was more than serviceable last year with Indy. It's just one of those things where it's like it's not necessarily a good real football thing, but it works for fantasy. But the idea here, I guess, is to fill out your other receiver spot. So
I literally like any of those guys because I'm of the mindset that Tua is going to not be able to push the ball down the field and it is going to be Jalen Waddle as the go-to guy by the time the year ends. Gotcha. So I can get on board with any of this. So I've always been higher on Brandon Cooks than most people. So
who has the bigger upside potential? It's probably Waddle. But
between who? The entire list?
Out of these 4?
Yeah, I think Waddle has the most upside, but I think McLaurin has the most upside with better, like he's safer, but he also has more upside. I don't think Cooks has upside with Davis Mills. I just think he's your safe bet.
So to me, it's like Brandon Cooks is clearly the number 1 target in an offense with a quarterback that could potentially be taking the next step.
McLaurin's clearly the number 1 in his offense with a quarterback who's already shown that he can be fantasy.
Who also just had Logan Thomas come off of the IR, who also drafted Jahan Dotson.
Thomas ain't going to be anything until mid-year, if at all.
Maybe. He's off the PUP.
Yeah, Andrew Cooper just had it on his Twitter that he was like, he's the perfect guy that you take Ertz early and then you just stash Thomas to just flip him back in when
he's healthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Brandon Cooks has balled out for me continuously. Terry McLaurin has been pretty annoying the last couple of years, in my opinion.
All right, everybody. So who are we? Is Allen Robinson part of this conversation or no?
I don't hate him, but I just think he's not the best option there.
Okay, so between those 3, how would you guys rank those 3?
The way that they are.
Okay.
I would say the opposite. So I would go Cooks, McLaurin, Waddle.
And I would have McLaurin, Waddle, Cooks. So who? I have McLaurin, Waddle, Cooks.
I don't care. Pick who you want.
Who ends up as
Terry got picked.
All right.
The key here is that you're taking a running back. So if we look at our first 5 picks, we've pretty much hit the inside of the draft. Placing a premium on Pitts, it would have been a dream if we could have got Andrews. But if you are looking Andrews, then realistically you're going to want to take him in the 2nd round, which looking at this team now, I probably would do.
I like the way we have it. I don't think that that's bad at all.
No. Okay. Here's where we can start getting into the money rounds a little bit here. Drew, I know you're pretty high on Marquise Brown. I'm definitely not taking a quarterback here. Just something to note, like the 6th round looks like we had 4 quarterbacks get taken there. So if you're going to go the QB route and you're looking for one of those earlier guys, then that's probably going to be your sweet spot. I would have loved to have Jalen Hurts here. I think knowing that this is the way that the board fell, I would probably be prioritizing Trey Lance at some point. But it's definitely too early right now.
Give me, what round is Kirk Cousins going to go in? Like the 9th, 10th?
12th.
Yeah. Yeah, give me him with his going to be close to 4,000 yards and 35 touchdown passes this year.
So at this point, you're filling out your flex position. To me, I am not sold on J.K. Dobbins with him being hurt. I really like Mooney the most out of this group. I know that Marquise Brown has a pretty good shot with like the start of the season with Hopkins being out, but there's just a lot of murkiness that I don't know how it's going to be handled. So I would probably be going receiver here to fill out the flex. I don't know if there's anybody else of note. You could, in theory, go Michael Thomas or Bateman as well. I think it's a little bit too early for Bateman, and I'm a little bit nervous about the injury concerns for Thomas, but there's a lot of upside there of having him as your flex option.
I don't even know why Michael Thomas is on the screen yet. It's ridiculous. It's just so stupid.
Well, it's only because we're looking at just wide receivers.
Still, like that's too high. It's dumb.
Okay.
The guy hasn't played in
This could be your AJ Dillon round if you wanted.
So I prefer Mooney here. He's the guy that clearly has number 1 targets all year. But Dobbins is very interesting to me. I always worry about ACL and significant injuries when a guy comes back. But like the Ravens are just their scheme for the rushing attack is just like he's gonna have holes that are just so big that I don't care if he goes through the hole with a cane and a walker. Like I just still think he's gonna produce fantasy wise.
Yeah. Cool. So we picked Mooney, Cooper, Dalton Schultz, Tom Brady, Chris Godwin. All were taken. Let's see here. Nothing really moved. Is this
on third running back territory?
It could be. Let me see.
I'm not worried about quarterback.
Y'all see this?
Is this like everybody else has one, right? So they're not going to bother to pick one again. You can wait a few rounds now.
So, I mean, if we're choosing between like someone like Dobbins, Dillon, Mitchell, Edmonds, I probably would lean AJ Dillon there. If you're looking at that particular tier, I could be swayed into Dobbins if you told me that his injury stuff wasn't too serious. I just get nervous because I know that Baltimore historically doesn't rush things back. And they have so many people that they'll throw in as a running back that they don't want to have him hurt for the year. But on the QB front, I mean, 8 teams have already taken a QB. This is a 10-team league, so there's not many more that outside of backups. So you still definitely have a lot of options. Looking at the tight end slot, all of this top 6 is pretty much going to be locked in and gone for sure at this point. But yeah, I think to me, running back's probably your safest bet if we look at who's still available on the receiver side. I might throw a flyer at Michael Thomas just because it's like, all right, like even if he doesn't do a lot, it could hit big. But I think the pick for me is probably AJ Dillon.
I like the idea of taking a wide receiver, a flyer that's coming off injury late, but it's not Thomas. It's Chris Godwin. I just think that
Godwin's already gone.
Yeah.
He was a pick before.
Yeah, so this is the range where I would consider Godwin. I'm still not even close on Thomas. I like AJ Dillon here.
Done. All right. So let's see what we got here. So Brown, Bateman, Thomas, Smith, Schuster, Dobbins, Mitchell, Wilson, Elijah Moore. I was kind of hoping he would have fell back. Gibson went 8th. Gabe Davis, LOL on the 8th. Adam Thielen, CEH, Smith.
Gabriel LOL Davis.
I just don't see it, man. We'll see what happens.
See, if we would have gotten Andrews instead of Pitts earlier, we could take Drake London here. But I don't want to have 2 guys on the Falcons.
Nah. Let's see here. So
Gabe Davis, I just want to mention this quick.
Oh my God.
Listen, he's like plus 4,000 or something to lead the NFL in touchdowns this year, and I completely think that's possible.
All right. So receivers, there was a very big run on receivers. And there wasn't a ton of movement on the running back situation. So just something to keep in mind. I think a lot of people realize that there's value in those middle rounds for receivers. So you want to get your 2 or 3 before that run happens. So it's definitely a balancing act. I kind of vibe with Chase Edmonds. I think since he's the highest paid running back that was on Miami, they could do a lot of damage. I think Kareem Hunt's definitely the safer pick between those 2. But there's no one really here that excites me on the receiver front. I don't really care about drafting Dak Prescott. I think he'll be serviceable, but I'm not really feeling too
QB1 last year.
Could have been, should have been. What was interesting with Dak, if you look back at last year's numbers, Dak had 10 out of 16 games. He had a top 12 finish, and then 6 of those were top 6 finishes, which was actually like 5th or 6th best in the league. So he's definitely seemingly being drafted below how he performed last year. So it's interesting to see that his ADP is where it's at, but it is what it is.
Brandon Ayuk. You're not gonna make a case here, Drew?
It's just crazy how different the ADPs are on here than like.
Yeah.
When I'm doing
it's just the aggregate.
It's just nuts. Like Ayuk's going in like on ESPN, he's going like the 14th round.
Yeah. All right. Ayuk or Edmonds?
Who else? I thought there was another running back. Oh, Kareem Hunt.
I prefer Hunt, but that's because you guys know I'm prejudiced against the Dolphins and Niners backfield, so you guys can decide on it.
They're one and the same.
It's done. All right, so then you had Harris, Edmonds, Kirk, Lockett. I actually like Christian Kirk a lot getting into those later rounds, just knowing that he is the top target for that team. If you have any belief in Trevor Lawrence, then probably a wise pick.
You should have belief in Trevor Lawrence.
Were you guys just dogging me 2 nights ago when I texted you that I like Christian Kirk and you both just ripped me for it?
I don't think that was the same text group. I never said that.
Yeah, I don't even remember getting a text about Christian Kirk.
All right, we'll go to the receipts and I'll send it to you later.
Okay, fine.
But anyway, Zay Jones is wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville. Just want to get that out there.
Oh, okay, my bad.
That's what you said that in the text thread. What do you mean you did?
There's no way. I don't recall any of this.
You did. It was you're killing me.
All right. So this is the point where I think either you're taking another receiver here so you have at least another bench option for a receiver like Ayuk. I don't mind that pick at all. Other options in the receiver world. You can go Drake London, Robert Woods, Tony. It's starting to get pretty slim pickings here. No pun intended. But
you taking George Pickens?
No, absolutely.
So wait, real quick. This was right after Drew said that Zayna thought Joe looked like Gunner. That he said this about Christian Kirk.
But I did say it, did I not?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I
And then Joe
register because I was so offended.
You said got to justify the contract, Joe.
So I was on your side.
And I said Marvin Jones Jr. better. I didn't say Zay Jones.
They both have the same last name though. So.
All right. For the sake of not reading all of our texts on screen, I'm gonna draft Brandon Ayuk just as another receiver here. If that's cool.
You should have seen the picture that Drew sent.
Oh wow.
Was it the potato?
No. Who did we just pick?
We just picked Brandon Ayuk.
Maurice Jones-Drew. Oh, okay.
And so then Drake London, Lazard, Hopkins, Penny, Woods, Sanders, Tony, Pollard, Patterson, Olave, Walker, Singletary, Burks, Russell Gage. So both of those quarterbacks still made it another round. I don't know if you honestly take maybe both. And then that way, like Dak, at least like there's some reliability there, or do you just keep building out your bench? I guess it's really a matter of, do y'all take players that y'all think are going to be serviceable at some point over the year, or do you keep your bench with people that like have like the upside? Like at what point are you taking like lottery ticket players over like, oh, like Chase Claypool will probably be like a wide receiver 4?
It depends on how much risk I have in my previous picks. I like 2 of those running backs there as definite picks, and I'd risk the quarterback still because I still like Matthew Stafford. I'd still risk Rodgers and Lance, but Dameon Pierce is sitting there. So
we do know you love Dameon Pierce. It's a little
bit a dog. Like that's
maybe
when I'm looking at 2 players and I'm trying to decide who I like, the edge always goes to the dog. Like it always does.
So you're picking TJ Hawkinson.
He looks exactly like a dog.
Think about where TJ Hawkinson was this point last year.
Like 5th round.
Draft.
Yeah, he's fallen pretty hard. Okay, so would you would rather take one of the 2 running backs and keep punting on the?
Because there's 3 quarterbacks I'd be fine with going with.
Sure. Okay. Who do you think has more upside between Stevenson and Pierce?
Upside Stevenson, but I think Pierce has a better opportunity at a larger workload just because that's the reason why I had him on the list. He didn't play in the second preseason game, essentially them telling him that he's going to be the guy. They don't want to risk him getting hurt, that they're not even giving him any run in the preseason anymore. So I like that Pierce is going to get a lot of touches, but Stevenson can explode on that team. But he does have to split with Harris. So
Stevenson can definitely explode.
All right, let's draft for upside. All right, so no quarterbacks were taken. We had our first defense.
I would take Pierce now then. He's still there.
Settle down.
Yeah, I think
quarterbacks aren't going because everybody has them.
All right. So you're saying running back.
Wait, did you take Pierce? Oh,
no, I haven't.
I could get on board with doing it.
All right, screw it. Let's do it. So let's see. So Dak got taken at the end of that round. No other running backs. Pickens went in the 11th. That's pretty hilarious. And then you had a run on later round tight ends. That's pretty wild. But all of the different QBs that you have are still there. To me, at this point, I have to pull the trigger on Lance.
Yeah, I would too.
And then I'm probably taking, depending on what this looks like, I like McKissick at some point, especially in a PPR format. I don't think that there's anybody else really from a tight end perspective that I care about for the bye week. The way that we have this team, we have a pretty huge gap for week 14, so that's going to be a fun one, but I also don't care about bye weeks. Also, if you're in a league, make sure that you don't start your playoffs in week 14 like a lot of people did last year. Huge pain in the ass. To me, I'm probably looking at Devontae Parker here, or taking Stafford, and then that way you don't have to worry about like if Trey Lance like completely falls apart.
What other quarterbacks are available if it's not Stafford? I think
Cousins you still have Kirk, too,
and so does
Rodgers.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't take a quarterback here then.
Okay, I'm on board with that. Any of the remaining tight ends
as you are? I don't know.
What?
I'm not as high on Devontae Parker as you are. He's struggled with injuries his whole career. I don't think Mac Jones is gonna. I think he's gonna spread the ball around. If you look at their Madden roster, all of their wide receivers are like 76, and they're all just going to be mid.
Drew,
in real life,
we are not going to use Madden as a barometer.
I'm not. I'm just saying, like, everybody knows that they're mid, so we'll just make them all mid-level.
But that's why they traded for Parker. I feel like Parker still has the like. For me, Parker is an upside pick, and if it doesn't pan out, like I won't feel bad cutting him.
Like I actually like Jacoby Myers a lot.
Yeah.
But
I like him more, and I like Freiermuth here. He's such a good tight end to have as your backup.
But what is Freiermuth realistically going to do? Like he's the fourth option on the team for a team that doesn't have a quarterback that's thrown a pass or has thrown for more than 3,800 yards. Like
I think he's going to score touchdowns. Like, and that's what the tight end position is.
Maybe.
I think they're going to unlock the middle of the field. That's my thing. Like whoever's going to be that's why I'm a little bit more worried about Deontay and definitely not like going as crazy as everybody else about Pickens right now.
I was worried about Deontay before the other night. I still feel like they were looking for him.
Mitch finds a guy. It's just who's going to be that guy.
I'm just looking at historical tendencies though. Those guys are going to be in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
So wait, what's happening now?
This is just like a bigger picture of the sheet. Okay.
What do we still even have left to pick? Defense and kicker, we don't have to do.
And one more bench spot. So Who do you want your last bench to be?
Well, we didn't pick a second quarterback, did we?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
we'd have to
anyone. I mean,
Okay. And then the other thing I will say too is that if you're in a league that doesn't require you to take a defense or a kicker, I don't, because then I have two more like spots that I can hold things off until the year starts.
You have a league like that?
Oh yeah.
I feel like the computer always forces you on it.
Well, that's because your commissioners are bad at their jobs.
I'm the commissioner of those leagues. So
well, that sounds like you. I said that knowing that you were the commissioner, by the way. So who are the Steelers playing week 1? No, I'm just kidding.
Cincy.
Good matchups from a defensive perspective. Let's see. The Broncos have Seattle and Houston to start. The Colts have Houston and Jacksonville. They could be a nice pickup for the beginning of the year. 49ers is probably the team, if I can get them, I will. I'm sure that they've been taken already, but the 49ers start with Chicago, and then they go to and then they have Seattle at home. That's going to be pretty juicy if you can snag them.
Fields masterclass.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I don't know if it really matters. Pick a defense that you feel excited about, and then grab a kicker too. And just take the one that's at the top. So what this will do, once you finish the draft, it'll tell you how you did. It'll also show you like your projected standings for that league, so you can kind of get a feel for what happened with it. So we're projected to have the top score overall. So we have a great bench. Starters are kind of mid-level, but that's just really dependent on who you're taking, stuff like that. We obviously punted on the QB. We focused on the tight end early, and then we also focused on the running backs. I think this is a pretty good reflection of how we drafted. We really weighted on the wide receivers and the QBs. But yeah, I don't think we should do do you want to do another one and just do it quick, or do you want to save that for next week?
Yeah, we can do it quick. We're gonna start pick 8 now then and see how it turns out.
Okay.
We don't need to have as much discussion. I mean, we can just.
It went pretty quick, anyways. It was only like 10 minutes.
What was 10 minutes?
I didn't think it took that long.
Dude, it was like 30, 40 minutes. You just love ball.
It's true.
When we started doing this, I think we were 27 minutes into the show.
Yeah. All right. So we got Taylor, McCaffrey, Henry, Eckler, Kupp, Jefferson, Najee. So let's see. They're saying you could go Dalvin Cook here. Swift. I think it's too early for Swift. I'm not taking
Chase.
Kelsey here. To me, I'm taking Stephon Diggs.
Oh.
If it's me.
Yeah, I probably would as well.
Go back to the running backs. I kind of like Dalvin Cook here. But I think Gabe Davis is going to take some of the work, so that's why I'm like that. But you're so high on Diggs being the only guy.
If I hear this guy's name one more time.
Dude, why do you hate him?
Okay, let's do it this way.
I don't hate him.
Running back or wide receiver?
He scores touchdowns. That's all that matters. Like
running back or wide receiver?
He did 1 year. I'm just saying. Let's see it again.
He was really high in targets in the red zone, and he barely played. Like for him to even be ranked where he was without playing is just crazy. Like he's gonna take away from Diggs. It's just gonna happen.
We'll see. This was supposed to be a fast draft. Running back or wide receiver? Just from a team construction.
If you guys want to take Diggs, that's fine, but I would take Cook. That's just that's who I would take.
We voted 2-1 wide receiver.
Yep.
We're taking Diggs.
Over Chase, too, which is just wild.
Also, Hurley said Wait. So you're worried about Gabriel Davis taken away from Diggs, but not Higgins and Boyd taken away from Chase.
No, I like Higgins better. I'm just saying, like, based on how that draft went, like, Chase is the guy you pick there. He's the best available.
To you.
I would take Diggs 100% of the time.
What was Diggs'
opportunity?
How did Diggs do last year? Honestly, like, what was his rank in terms of wide receivers? Because I just feel like he wasn't as good. Like,
he didn't have as many touchdowns last year. But if we look at the numbers,
that's literally my main argument for Gabe Davis is the touchdowns.
Touchdowns are not
because Diggs touchdowns are going to go up. They're going to even out. Positive regression, and Gabe Davis is going to go down because he's not going to turn all those into touchdowns like you think.
Let's see here. Diggs had 9.6 targets a game. His ADOT was 11.1. He had 2.16 yards per route run. His QB threw for more than 30 touchdowns and 250 yards per game. He had 4 top 12 finishes and 10 top 24.
He had 10 touchdowns, and he was still, like, average.
I didn't say that he had 10 touchdowns.
I just looked it up. He did.
Oh.
And you said that his touchdowns are going to go up? He was wide receiver 7 last year. He's going to he's going to lose out on some of that work. And wide receiver 7, and he's going to lose some. It's just, I don't know. It don't matter. It's a mock. I just don't see that.
Okay. You could take Chase there, whatever receiver that you feel.
It would have been Cook for me.
Okay. All right. So we're back on the clock. Cook, Chase, Adam, Mixon went there. I was really hoping that Mixon would have fell. I'm probably taking Kamara here, unless there's something really exciting from the receiver piece. To me, at this point, it's like there's no one really here that I'm that excited about on the receiver front. I feel like it's a totally separate tier. I'd rather dive into the running backs there with that second pick. Is there anybody in particular that y'all feel warm and fuzzy about?
I'm cool with Kamara.
Drew?
That's what I would pick too.
Cool. All right. So let's see where we're at. Okay. So to me, in my mind, are both of them still there? No. Okay. So Mark Andrews is gone. He went mid-second.
Yeah.
Josh Allen's off the board. To me, this is like very much like a Pitts pick, and then figure out my next receiver after that. See, this is why I wouldn't want to take Pitts early. I'd rather risk and see if I can get him on the backswing of the 4th, just because I feel like I'd rather get another higher level receiver running back than get the leftovers coming back on 4. But that's just me.
Who's there? We can look. And
so you got
yeah,
Allen, Pittman, Brown, Higgins. Yeah, and then running backs, you're already down to the James Conner, ETN, Breece Hall. A lot of these guys will probably go on the 4th.
This is kind of why I would prefer because I think that we're in a dead zone at running back now, and it's a need. And I just don't like any of those guys here.
Right. I would probably go Allen or Pittman here if it was me. Wait a minute. Okay, we already have Kamara. Okay.
I think you can argue that if Pitts was a wide receiver, and he obviously doesn't have a good quarterback now, but say Ritter hits, he could be argued to be a top 10 wide receiver, not just tight end, and you get to use him in your tight end slot. That's how I feel about him. I don't like to risk not having him in any drafts. I've been pushing real heavy to get him in everything, but
I just feel like we're literally doing the exact same draft except for one player so far.
Yeah, I mean, I like Pittman. Go back. Higgins was there too. I like him.
Yeah, Higgins is there. It's Allen, Pittman, AJ Brown, T Higgins, DJ Moore.
I think Pittman's your safest bet of being the number 1 all year. I think Allen and Mike Williams are going to be back and forth, and Higgins will be back and forth with Chase. I'd rather take Pittman knowing he's my number one. I just don't see much.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go receiver.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take Pittman for reasons noted. I probably would go wide receiver there. So you had AJ Brown, Mahomes, Keenan Allen, Kyle Pitts. Now it's a matter of, do you grab someone like James Conner, or do you go for someone like T Higgins? I'm probably going with what's on the board. I'm probably going T Higgins here.
Same.
Cool. And that's awesome. ETN made it back. That's great news. Other running backs that we have, Breece Hall. That's could be something special there for sure. But then we still have the looming tight end situation. So Waller's still there. You still have Schultz there. I feel like the running back situation, I wouldn't want to wait and see what happens with the running back. So do y'all feel a particular way about those two?
I prefer ETN. And hope that Schultz makes it back. Breece Hall's schedule is just so brutal.
Okay, so Brees Hall is there. Schultz is also there. You also have like the Mooney, Robinson level sort of guys.
If it were me and if I were to not take Schultz here, I'm not high on Hawkinson now. I think that there's more guys taking touches away. If I don't get Schultz here, I'm completely punting on tight end at that point.
I would agree. Let's punt just so that we can see when we would take a tight end, since we were heavy invested on it the last time. So would y'all take Brees or would you take someone like Mooney?
I would even consider Lamar here because he's a running back playing quarterback, and I just think that he's playing for the money. I'm higher on Lamar this year, and I think he fell into a range here where I'm not as concerned about taking a quarterback. I would consider Lamar.
I could get on board with it because we waited like super long to take a quarterback in the last draft too. So like for the,
if I didn't go Lamar, I would have 100% taken Mooney though.
I would have probably taken Brees.
Brees.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. Schultz went. You had Godwin go in that range. A lot of QBs going in that territory. Brees Hall actually made it to the 7-3 pick. Let's see what our tight end situation. So we're in that tight end dead zone with Hawkinson, Goddard, other guys. I'm probably looking heavy at Ertz at some point. I think it's still too early now, but he's somebody that you can plug in and play for those first 6 weeks. So as some of these guys start to go, we're in the 7th round. I'm probably picking him at 8 just to make sure that I get him. Even though, let's see how many tight ends have been taken. 6. Yeah, I would want to take him with that next pick. If we're not going to take him now, I wouldn't think. Out of the guys that are here, any running backs do you feel a particular way about versus receiver?
I feel like I prefer to take a running back here because I think ETN still comes with question marks.
Okay.
I'm starting to lean towards your line of thinking that I do think that the Niners want to make Elijah Mitchell the guy. I still worried about taking guys from that backfield in Miami's back. I think that based on what's left, I've already seen A.J. Dillon go. There's not much there. I think that I would probably risk taking Elijah Mitchell in this spot.
Okay. Cool. That sounds like a plan. Let's do it. Okay. Russ, Damian Harris, CEH, Miles Sanders, we're back on the clock. You still pretty much have all the same running backs that were there. No tight ends were taken. I guess I feel better about waiting until the next round now to get Ertz. So do you load up more on the tight ends knowing that you have 3 pretty much guys that are going to be locked into your lineup? Or not tight end, running back. Or do you want to get somebody like Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, who probably won't make it back on the flip side? I know you guys mentioned the stack aspect of things earlier. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that at all.
I mean, for that reason, maybe we should take Bateman here. Just to kind of throw everything that you could do in a draft scenario into one thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's definitely not like a stack that really comes to mind when I think of stacks. But I mean, it could be something this year. We know that the Ravens, they're going to run the ball.
Right. Yeah, and I think too, it's proven in best ball strategies that stacking has like a substantial benefit to it, just because the weeks that you do have both of your players go off, that's good, and that'll normalize over the course of the season. If you're not in best ball, it's not I don't think there's as much data on is that a viable thing, but people do like to do it because when you do have the big weeks, you definitely have a lot of good things happening. The running back situation, it really hasn't changed all that much. Singletary and Edmonds went, but otherwise that's when you're really getting into that round of receivers getting taken. So I really do like that Bateman pick there, or whoever you feel is going to be that person. So do we want to go tight end? Do we want to keep waiting and stack up at other positions? What are y'all thinking?
Go back to the running backs. Kareem Hunt falling this far is attractive to me.
I like attractive things. Let's do
it. We have two risky running backs, essentially.
Yeah.
So he's safe.
Yeah. I mean, outside of last year, he's been pretty durable.
We could make up for not getting Christian Kirk in the other.
We could.
As long as we can be marked safe from drafting Tyler Lockett for it.
Fine. We'll allow it. Okay. So let's see. Still no tight ends that have been taken. I'm starting to get uncomfortable. I would probably be drafting Zach Ertz at this point.
Yeah,
just to not risk it.
Yeah.
And so just in case anybody's curious why we're at that point. So Hawkinson has a lot more target competition. Same with Goddard, and neither one of them have necessarily like good quarterbacks. Zach Ertz, you have Marquise Brown is injured. You have DeAndre Hopkins out on suspension. So it's a very possible scenario for the first 6 weeks of the season that Zach Ertz is going to be your number one target getter in Arizona, where they're going to be trying to justify all the stuff they've done for Kyler Murray. So he may not be a good season play, but for the first few weeks can absolutely be a good home run. And then you can pair him with somebody like a Cole Kmet or a more high upside player because these guys will likely finish in a 5 to 8 scenario for the tight end position more than likely. So it's like, why would you waste a premium pick when you could try to find somebody that has top 5 potential versus getting somebody that you can get in a later round that's probably also going to finish somewhere in the 5 to 10 range. It's just not worth the value there. Okay. So we have our QB. We only have 2 bench spots left. I think at this point we can probably just do whatever. I don't know if you feel any particular way about handcuffs or anything like that. Knowing that we've kind of been punting on the receivers for a bit, I would probably just try to get some lottery tickets in the receiver game. I don't know if there's anybody that y'all feel any sort of way, or honestly, you could go after a defense or something like that. I know you're traditionally supposed to wait until the last rounds, but I don't know. You got to have fun with it sometimes. Like you can say, hey, like I'm going to pick George Pickens now because I think he's a dog. Like you can totally do that.
Julio.
Could go the Julio route too.
I like MVS as someone who could potentially hit.
Yeah. Big. All right, so we'll just pick whoever's at the top. We'll take Jacoby Myers. We'll draft him real quick. And then would you want to grab a second tight end knowing that Ertz is no longer going to be there? Would Kmet be your guy? I know there's a lot of people that are big on Alberto. We talked about David Njoku a little bit.
Alberto was running with the 2s for Denver.
Was he?
Yes. He was playing in the 4th quarter in their last preseason game.
Damn. I mean, I'm a big Cole Kmet supporter for this year, and knowing that we don't have Mooney, I feel pretty good about that. Obviously, we talked a little bit about Logan Thomas coming back from injury. Evan Ingram, somebody that we've thrown around a lot with the potential of being a top 2 target getter. I don't see it for Higbee, Everett, Noah Fant, Irv Smith. None of those guys really have that appeal to me. I would probably just take Kmet and see what happens with him.
Yep.
If you didn't take Cole Kmet here and you waited to pick a tight end later, I actually like Austin Hooper.
He could be. I mean, they said what with that with the news with like Treylon Burke that Westbrook-Ikhine is going to be the wide receiver 2 starting the year. So I mean, Hooper looked good in Atlanta, and then got paid all that money to block in Cleveland. I'll just be curious to see how they utilize him if he gets spread out wide more and is more of a slot guy, because his numbers were way down in that department with his time in Cleveland.
I don't think he could block.
They tried. I don't think he can either, but he was only getting 13% of slot snaps last year, and he was only running 17 routes per game, so he was at like 50% route run participation, which is like for him, if he's going to be a receiving option, like that's why they were constantly running multiple tight end sets because it was a waste. But I could see it. I mean, he has that upside for sure. I think Njoku and Hooper have more upside than like a Irv Smith Jr. or Noah Fant. They might have a good touchdown year, but I just don't see it. But yeah,
I like Michael Gallup as the homer pick here. If we had another, I don't think we have another spot there to draft from, but like Michael Gallup is someone that you can stash. If you don't have to pick a defense or a kicker, I would pick a guy like Gallup and then put him on your IR slot because he should be playing with IR, and then
right.
And so if we look at our stats for this one, so again, we're killing it on the bench front. Some projected work to be done for the starters, and it looks like we're kind of middling for the majority of the team. So you can't win a draft. You can't win a league with the draft usually unless you absolutely kill it, but you can lose it. So it's really just getting yourself up to a fast start, being flexible and knowing when to let go of your players, I think, is just the biggest piece. You can say, oh, maybe like I know like Ayuk last year. I held on to Ayuk for like 12 weeks on my bench. And it was like I had so many other players that actually did something, but was just reluctant to let him go because of the draft capital. As soon as the draft's over, it doesn't matter anymore.
I was the same way. I didn't want to be wrong about him, and I was. I'm hoping we were a year early.
Maybe. We'll see. A lot of talk. Yep. This has been a long one, long episode. So we appreciate everybody. For sure, Tyler Hurnley, he's been very active. Obviously, like all the time, but especially with as long as this episode's gone and here the whole time. So shout out to Tyler. Shout out to everybody that watched or is still watching. Can't thank you guys enough. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at AT412FF Show. Shout out to Joe and all the work that he does on the Twitter account. It's pretty much just him. But follow the guys at their personal Twitter accounts as well. You can follow me if you want. You can follow Around the 412. You guys know that I will be in the description of the YouTube video as well. Other than that, do you guys have anything else?
Donate to Rocking Around the 412.
Donate to Rocking Around the 412. I'll put that in the description too. Good call. But other than that, until next week, we'll see you guys then. This has been the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show with Smitty, Drew, and Joe.